Just before dawn, at 500 local time, the steel beneath the USS George Washington vibrates with the steady rhythm of a ship moving confidently through open water. There are no alarms, no sharp commands, no visible tension, only the deep, familiar hum of machinery working exactly as intended. Then a new tone breaks the pattern. It is not loud and it is not urgent, but it is different. Inside the Combat Information Center, a surface search operator leans toward the scope. A fresh contact has appeared at the far edge of the display. Small return. Fast movement. Not scheduled. Surface contact bearing 247. The plot settles. Speed updates. The number climbs higher than expected. Then another contact appears beside it. Then a third. Within moments, 3 separate returns are visible, evenly spaced, and moving along converging paths. On the bridge, the officer of the deck shows no outward reaction. He studies the repeater display as the range begins to fall. The real issue is not where the ships are, but how quickly they are closing. From CIC comes a calm recommendation for classification. No one rushes, no one raises a voice. The carrier continues on course. At 0520, a 4th contact appears, then a 5th, then a 6th. 6 surface contacts, 6 separate radar signatures, all moving with purpose. Their spacing is too deliberate to be random. Their bearings are too clean to be careless. These ships are not simply passing through, they are taking positions. In CIC, the tactical display redraws itself with every update. The closest point of approach grows smaller with each refresh. The contacts accelerate. Speed reaches 26 knots. That changes the mood. 26 knots is not routine patrol speed. It is a statement. The captain steps out onto the bridge wing, eyes forward, posture relaxed. He does not ask for guesses. He does not need to. The geometry already says enough. 6 ships are shaping the water ahead of the carrier. There are no radio calls, no hails, no change in navigation lights, only silence. At 0522, the air picture remains clear. No aircraft overhead, no unusual emission spikes beyond standard surface search radar. Whatever is happening is being kept deliberately simple. Range drops to 14 nautical miles. That figure seems to linger in the air for a moment longer than usual. 14 nautical miles is close enough to matter. On the flight deck, routine movement slows. Yellow shirts pause launches that do not need to happen right now. No announcement is made, no warning tone sounds. But everyone feels the shift. The ocean may be the same, but its rhythm has changed. In CIC, the quiet classification work continues. Hull shapes, radar cross-sections, mast layouts. The answer comes together faster than anyone says it out loud. The watch supervisor gives a single nod. Russian surface combatants. No one comments. No one overreacts. Knowing who they are answers only one question. The more important ones remain. Why this formation? Why this speed? And why now? At 0524, the 6 ships split into 2 loose elements. They are not retreating, and they are not charging. They are adjusting their angles, trimming the distance, tightening the space, without crossing an obvious line. It is subtle, but unmistakably intentional. On the bridge, the helmsman keeps the carrier steady. No turn, no change in speed. Holding course is itself a choice. CIC reports the lead elements with a CPA of under 6 nautical miles. That is well inside the range where mistakes stop being theoretical. The captain speaks without raising his voice. Condition 3. The order moves through the ship without drama. Set and man key stations. Not a wartime posture, but a readiness posture, the kind that stays measured without blinking. Nothing obvious changes topside. Aircraft remain parked. Systems do not visibly swing into action, but below deck, the ship wakes up in quiet layers, ready and waiting. At 0526, one of the Russian ships edges closer than the others, shifting its bearing just enough to test for a reaction. None comes, no radio challenge, no course correction, no warning shot. Only a carrier holding its line. In CIC, every second is logged. Every bearing change is time-stamped. This is not theater, this is record. 6 naval ships, closing distance, no communication. The water between them now feels smaller, compressed more by steel and intent than by the sea itself. The officer of the deck glances at the clock. The nearest Russian hull is now under 5 nautical miles away, its wake visible through long-range optics. Still no hails, still no deviation. Out here, tension does not announce itself. There is no soundtrack, no dramatic signal. There is only geometry, speed, and restraint. At 0528, the spacing changes first. Not enough to trigger alarms, not enough to look dramatic, but enough for the tactical display to show that 6 separate vectors are no longer behaving like independent ships. They are becoming parts of one coordinated shape. The surface plot updates again. 2 contacts drift outward, 1 slides inward. The remaining 3 maintain speed, adjusting their bearings by degrees rather than miles. This is not random movement. It is geometry with intent. Contacts are maneuvering, the watch supervisor says evenly. The captain studies the water ahead through polarized glass. To the naked eye, everything looks unchanged. Blue water, clean horizon. But the screens tell another story. The space around the carrier is being carefully shaped. By 0530, the 6 Russian ships settle into a loose arc ahead of the USS George Washington. Not a full encirclement. Not yet. Just enough overlap to narrow the carrier's choices if anyone decides to move. The carrier does not. Speed holds. Course holds. Holding position is not passive. It is a signal. In CIC, faint range rings glow around the carrier's symbol. Each Russian hull sits just inside a ring that matters. Close enough to be deliberate, far enough to deny intent. CPA calculations refresh every few seconds. The numbers tighten, then level off. CPA steady at 4.8 nautical miles. That distance means something to experienced sailors. It is close enough that every move is visible. Close enough that a misjudgment does not get a second chance. Still, there is no radio traffic. No bridge-to-bridge call, no explanation. Silence is doing the work. At 0532, one of the Russian ships adds a little speed. Not enough to close directly, but enough to slide laterally across the carrier's projected path. It is the kind of move designed to provoke a response without forcing one. No response comes. On the flight deck, crews continue to wait. Aircraft remain chained in place. Nothing launches. Nothing taxis. This is not hesitation. It is control. Below deck, systems remain alert but restrained. Sensors listen. Computers record. No one reaches for anything that does not need to be touched. In CIC, emissions analysis sharpens the picture. Surface search radars sweep intermittently. No fire control illumination, no targeting spikes. They are watching, and they want it known that they are watching. At 0534, the formation compresses again. 2 ships drift closer together, tightening the arc. The outer pair widens slightly, shaping a corridor that narrows ahead of the carrier. It is not a blockade in any legal sense, but it is unmistakable pressure. Pressure without words. The watch supervisor notes that the coordinated maneuvering continues without deviation from pattern. The captain steps closer to the chart table and traces the projected tracks with one finger, not marking anything, only confirming what is already clear. They are not testing territorial limits, they are testing procedural ones. How close before a warning is issued? How tight before a course change happens? How much before restraint begins to look like weakness? So far, the answer is none. At 0536, the nearest Russian hull is clearly visible through optics. Gray steel, white wake, antenna arrays. Steady movement, no visible deck activity from this range. Professional ships with professional crews, which makes the silence even more meaningful. A junior operator in CIC notes that all 6 contacts are holding remarkably consistent speed. No lag, no surge. They are pacing the carrier as a unit. That takes planning. That takes rehearsal. This is not an accidental meeting. The carrier presses forward, cutting a clean path through the water. No turn to port, no turn to starboard, no increase in speed, only mass and momentum unchanged. At 0538, one Russian ship eases even closer, reducing its CPA to under 4 nautical miles. It holds there, waiting. The bridge remains calm. The helmsman's hands stay steady. The officer of the deck says nothing. The message is simple and unspoken. We see you and we are not moving. The water between the ships now feels tight, measured less in miles than in intent. Every projected line crosses somewhere beyond the horizon. 6 ships hold their shape. One carrier holds its course. The atmosphere grows quieter, not calmer, but more focused, like a held breath. The readiness order is already in motion throughout the ship, yet on the surface, almost nothing appears different. No running feet, no raised voices, no dramatic signals. Condition 3 is not spectacle. It is discipline. Below deck, key stations are manned with practiced efficiency. Consoles glow, headsets settle in place, checklists move forward without needing to be read aloud. Every motion is familiar, controlled, deliberate. On the bridge, the carrier keeps moving straight ahead. Bow steady, speed unchanged, course unchanged. That consistency is a choice. In CIC, the tactical picture grows sharper. 6 Russian surface combatants remain in coordinated formation, close enough to matter, loose enough to deny direct provocation. At 0542, the carrier's sensor suites begin quietly working in greater harmony. Nothing points outward, nothing visibly locks on, but everything listens. Electronic support measures gather background noise, frequencies, pulse patterns, small signatures that may matter later. This is not escalation, it is preparation. The Russian crews know they are being observed. They also know they are not being directly challenged. That balance matters. On the flight deck, the air remains still. No launch sequence, no spinning rotors. Aircraft sit chained and silent, inactive but not asleep. Everyone aboard understands the posture, not passive, not aggressive, ready. At 0544, one Russian ship drifts half a degree closer to the carrier's projected track. The movement is slight, almost casual. In CIC, it is noted instantly. Bearing change logged. CPA holding. Logged, not reacted to. The captain remains on the bridge wing, hands resting on the rail. He gives no new order. He does not need to. Condition 3 means the ship can respond immediately if necessary. It also means it does not have to. At this distance, every move is amplified. A turn could be read as avoidance. An acceleration could be read as challenge. A radio call would be acknowledgement. So none of those things happen. At 0546, the Russian formation stops tightening. The arc stabilizes. The ships hold position relative to one another, their wakes drawing clean parallel lines across the sea. It is a brief equilibrium. 6 ships applying pressure, 1 carrier refusing to yield space. In CIC, time stretches. Seconds pass without surprise. Operators breathe evenly, eyes fixed on data that continues to update without changing the essentials. This is where mistakes are most dangerous. Not in chaos, but in stillness. A hand moves too soon. A word is spoken without need. A system is activated before its time. None of that happens here. At 0548, emissions analysis catches a minor change. One Russian radar sweeps slightly longer than before. Not threat grade, not fire control, but noticed. Emission logged. No urgency, no dramatic follow-up. Everything is being recorded. Above deck, the sea remains calm and the horizon uninterrupted. From a distance, this would look like nothing more than ships moving across open water. The tension would be invisible. At 0550, the nearest Russian hull holds just under 4 nautical miles. It does not advance. It does not retreat. It waits. So does the carrier. Condition 3 remains in place. Systems are awake. Crew is ready. No visible weapons posture. No aircraft launched. No warnings issued. Just a carrier maintaining composure, momentum, and control. In moments like this, restraint becomes its own form of strength. Silence becomes communication. Holding course becomes the loudest thing anyone says. The standoff has not ended, but it has reached the point where the next move will matter. At 0552, the balance shifts. One of the Russian ships alters course by only a few degrees. To an untrained eye, it would barely register. On the tactical plot, it matters immediately. Contact 3 adjusting bearing. CPA begins to fall, not sharply but steadily. 4 nautical miles, then 3.8. This is no longer only geometry, this is intent testing its limit. On the bridge, the carrier remains locked on its heading. No helm order follows, no change in speed is requested. The ship does not move to accommodate the approach. That decision shortens the timeline. At 0554, Contact 3 continues its lateral slide toward the carrier's projected track. The rest of the formation holds steady. They are watching this as closely as the carrier is. It is a probe. One ship moves, the others wait to see what happens. In CIC, the air picture remains clean. No aircraft inbound, no unexpected returns. This encounter remains on the surface, where everything is slower, heavier, and harder to undo. CPA now 3.2 nautical miles. That is close. Close enough for bridge teams to make out hull details through optics. Close enough that any sudden maneuver would be unmistakable. The captain steps forward, eyes moving from the sea to the repeater display. His voice remains even. Maintain course. Nothing more. Below deck, readiness tightens by another degree. No visible drama, no audible signal. Just the quiet understanding that miscalculation is no longer an abstract possibility. At 0556, the wake behind the Russian ship lengthens. Speed increases slightly. Not a rush, more of a push. The plot updates. CPA trending under 3 nautical miles. That crosses a line professionals recognize instinctively. It is not illegal. It is not openly hostile. But it is unsafe unless both sides remain exact. The carrier remains exact. At 0557, the decision is made to add eyes in the air. Not to threaten, not to intimidate, to observe. The flight deck comes alive without spectacle. A single aircraft lifts off in a smooth, controlled ascent, climbing to a measured altitude. It does not charge the Russian formation. It does not buzz decks or cut aggressively across the water. It simply rises above the scene and watches. In CIC, the flow of information expands. Visual feeds now supplement radar. Bearings sharpen, the picture becomes impossible to misread. Contact 3 holds course for a few more seconds. Then it hesitates. Its bearing freezes. Speed steadies. The wake shortens. At 0559, the change is undeniable. Contact 3 reducing speed. CPA stabilizes. The ship does not turn away immediately, but it stops pressing forward. That pause matters. The rest of the Russian formation responds almost at once. One ship eases outward, another adjusts bearing to restore spacing. The arc begins to loosen, still no radio calls, still no spoken acknowledgement, but the geometry relaxes. At 0601, Contact 3 finally turns. Not sharply, not dramatically, just enough to widen the distance. CPA begins to grow. 3 nautical miles, then 3.5, then 4. The pressure recedes as quietly as it arrived. The aircraft overhead holds altitude, recording the scene without pushing closer or pulling away. Once the turn is clearly established, it does not linger. By 0603, the Russian formation continues to open. The arc dissolves into wider, looser spacing. The sense of constraint around the carrier fades, not suddenly, but unmistakably. On the bridge, no one celebrates, no one comments. The captain watches the turn complete, then looks forward again. The carrier never changed course because it never had to. By 0605, the Russian ships are no longer shaping the water ahead. They are simply ships again, moving on headings that no longer intersect the carrier's path. The moment passes without a shot, without a message, without a headline. Only a decision, made and answered without sound. The sea returns to its neutral geometry, but every bearing shift, every pause, every turn away has already been logged, preserved, and stored. The test is over, and one side has decided not to push it further. At 0608, the space begins to open for good, not all at once, one bearing at a time, one widening wake, then another. The 6 Russian ships no longer move as a shared shape. Their formation loosens into separate tracks, each hull reclaiming its own space. On the bridge of the USS George Washington, nothing changes. Speed steady, course steady. Flight operations resume without announcement. The carrier does not acknowledge the shift because out here, acknowledgement can be louder than action. In CIC, the plot confirms what everyone can already see. CPAs increase across the board. 4 nautical miles becomes 6. 6 becomes 8. Contacts opening, all units diverging. The words are flat, professional, final. This is not relief, it is confirmation. The airborne observer completes its orbit and turns back toward the ship at the same altitude. It does not challenge the Russian vessels. It does not linger. Its purpose was observation, and that purpose is complete. By 0612, the Russian ships are no longer shaping the carrier's space. They are passing traffic again, still visible, still monitored, but no longer imposing pressure. The sea seems larger now. On deck, crews return to routine with the same calm precision they brought to readiness. Chains come off. Signals resume. Operations continue as though the interruption never happened. That continuity is intentional. Below deck, logs are finalized. Timestamps are confirmed. Bearing changes are cross-checked against sensor data. Every second of the encounter is preserved, not for drama, not for spectacle, but for the record. That is how moments like this are measured, not by what almost happened, not by what could have happened, but by what was done and what was deliberately left undone. At 0615, the Russian formation has fully dispersed. No ship attempts to regain position, no course cuts back across the carrier's path. No final maneuver tries to reopen the moment. It is over. The captain remains on the bridge, eyes ahead. He does not turn to watch the departing hulls. His attention stays on the water in front of him because the mission never changed. The USS George Washington did not turn to avoid pressure. It did not accelerate to challenge it. It did not explain itself. It held course. And out here, that choice carries weight. Ships communicate through angles, speed, and restraint. Words only complicate what movement already says clearly. 6 ships closed in. One carrier kept going exactly where it was going. And when the distance finally opened, no one declared victory. No signal was sent, no flag was raised, only the water was given back. By 0620, the encounter is complete. The Russian ships fade toward the edge of the tactical display, still tracked, still monitored, but no longer central to the picture. The ocean becomes what it has always been, open, indifferent, unforgiving. But the data remains. Every approach vector, every pause, every turn away. Those details do not vanish with the horizon. They are cataloged, studied, and remembered, not as drama, but as precedent. Because the next time ships close the distance in silence, the outcome will be shaped by what was learned here. Not by force, not by threats, by control. Out here, the ship that holds its position often decides how the moment ends, and the USS George Washington never moved an inch.